One accidental kiss. That's all it took to awaken something in me I'd worked so hard to bury. Before we dive into this moment, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video for more true-to-heart stories. I never imagined that night would shift the way I saw everything. My job, my choices, and especially the man I'd worked beside for over a decade. But sometimes, moments arrive unannounced, unfolding like a perfectly timed symphony, each note striking something deeper than expected. It started like any other evening. The company's annual gala had just ended. Through the wide glass windows of the rooftop venue, the city glimmered under a velvet sky. Laughter from my coworkers still echoed behind me as I stepped outside, letting the cool night air press against my skin like a balm. My heels ached, small reminders of hours spent smiling through conversations, shaking hands, pretending. "Leaving already?" a voice asked. I turned and saw him, Damien Cole, my boss for the past 12 years, always sharply dressed, with just a touch of silver at his temples. He carried the kind of calm confidence that comes only with time and hard-won success. At 61, he was composed as ever. But that night, something in his eyes was softer, unsettled. "Just getting some air," I said, offering a half smile. "That was quite the event," he replied, stepping beside me, hands buried in his coat pockets. The usual formality in his voice was tempered by the warm glow of the street lamps. "But honestly," he added with a small laugh, "these events aren't really my thing." "Funny," I replied, "considering you host them every year." "That's just business," he shrugged. "You, on the other hand," I said, teasing, "looked like you were enjoying yourself." He raised a brow, amused. "Maybe I've learned to fake it well." Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. The city buzzed around us. Yet, in that little bubble, we were just two people. Not boss and employee, just people. "I'm not ready to go home yet," he said, his voice low. "Would you join me for a drink?" I hesitated. We'd spoken outside of work plenty, late-night strategy calls, project wrap-ups. But this felt different. His voice carried weight, something unspoken that made my heart stutter. "Sure," I said, trying to sound casual. "Why not?" We strolled through quieter streets, leaving behind the shine of high-rises and slipping into a hidden lounge tucked between old brick buildings. Inside, the lights were low and golden. Jazz drifted lazily through the air. The world outside felt miles away. He loosened his tie, something I had never seen him do, and settled into the booth across from me. For the first time in years, he looked at me. Not the way a superior looks at a subordinate, but like a man trying to understand someone he thought he already knew. "You've been with the company a long time," he said, swirling the amber in his glass. 12 years, I nodded. "Do you ever wonder how things might have turned out if you'd taken another path?" I blinked. "You mean, do I have regrets?" He shook his head. "Not regrets, just curiosity. Do you ever think about the roads not taken?" I paused, the question catching me off guard. "I think we all do. Sometimes. But I've always believed that every decision, every twist, leads us right where we're meant to be." He smiled softly. "That's a wise way to see things." And we talked, not about quarterly goals or projections, but about life. He told me stories from the early years, about the mistakes, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices he made to build something lasting. I shared pieces of myself too, the ambitions I'd shelved, the moments that shaped who I was. Time blurred. One drink became 2, then 3. Laughter came easier. The space between us began to shrink. At one point, his hand reached across the table. His fingers brushed mine. Barely a touch, but enough to make the world hold its breath. I didn't. Pull away. That simple contact sent a ripple through the room, as if something unspoken had finally found the courage to speak. "I never told you this," he said, voice almost a whisper. "But I've always admired you. Not just your work. You have this presence about you. Like, you make the chaos feel manageable." My heart beat harder. I'd heard compliments before, plenty of them, but this wasn't flattery. This felt like truth, honest, heavy, unfiltered, and before either of us could talk ourselves out of it, before reason caught up with emotion, it happened. A kiss. Soft, accidental, undeniable. And in that one stolen moment, everything changed. "You've been my one constant," he said, voice steady but low. Maybe I didn't realize soon enough how much that meant. I didn't know what to say. Damien wasn't just my boss. He was someone I'd respected for over a decade. His opinion had always mattered more than I let myself admit. And yet, sitting there in that dimly lit lounge, I wasn't thinking about titles or policies or the invisible walls we'd kept between us. I was thinking about the way he was looking at me, like I was someone he hadn't truly seen until now. "I should go home," I murmured, but even I could hear the hesitation in my voice. He studied me for a long, quiet moment, then gave a simple nod. "Let me walk you." The streets had quieted, the city slowly exhaling. When we reached my building, we paused beneath the amber glow of the streetlight. "Thank you," he said, "for tonight, for listening." I smiled, a small, unsure thing. I could say the same. A breath passed between us. Hesitation. Unspoken things. I leaned in slightly. Not a kiss, not quite. Just enough to shift the world for a heartbeat. Then I stepped back, my breath shaky. "Good night, Damien," I whispered, and turned away, heart pounding. Something had shifted. And deep down, I knew. This was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual, the quiet stillness of dawn brushing against memories that hadn't faded. His voice. His touch. The words he hadn't spoken, but that I'd felt for years. Damien had always been about structure, boundaries, professionalism. But now I couldn't stop seeing him as a man. A man who'd let down his guard and looked at me like I was more than just a line on a company org chart. I shook the thoughts away as I poured my coffee. Nothing had really happened. Nothing could happen. And yet, when I stepped into the office, the air felt heavier, charged with something unspoken. Through the glass of his office, I saw him on a call, but his gaze lifted and caught mine. Just for a second. A smile, small, private, barely there yet unmistakable. The day passed in a blur. He stopped by my desk more than he needed to. His eyes lingered longer than they should have. By mid-afternoon, I needed air. I stepped out onto the office terrace, letting the sharp bite of autumn wind push against my blouse. "You've been avoiding me," came his voice from behind. I turned, startled. "That's dramatic." He stepped closer, his hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "Is it?" We stood in silence. "About last night," I began, unsure how to even start. "It was different," he said, not a question. "I know." "Damien, we can't do this. I know what you're thinking, that it's risky, that it changes everything." "It does change things," I said, barely above a whisper. "You're my boss. There are rules." "I don't care about rules." His voice was soft, but sure. I stared at him, searching for the familiar mask of restraint. It wasn't there. This wasn't the polished executive I had always known. This was someone real, someone reaching beyond lines and limits. "You're overthinking it," he said gently. "Last night, that wasn't about titles or expectations. It was just two people. And I know you felt it too." I opened my mouth to protest, but nothing came out. Because he was right. I had felt it. In the stillness between heartbeats, in the way the world had quieted when he'd touched my hand. He stepped closer, brushing his fingertips along the inside of my wrist. The contact so light, it barely registered. But it sent a quiet spark, up my arm, right to my chest. For so long, I'd built my life on control, on being the person who always followed the rules, who never blurred the lines. But with him, something shifted. "I don't know where this leads," I said, breath unsteady. "Neither do I," he replied, "but that doesn't mean we should run from it." A breeze rolled through. I shivered, more from the weight of everything than the wind. He noticed, and without a word, slipped off his jacket and placed it around my shoulders. It was warm, familiar. "Him. Come on," he said with a glance toward the glass doors of the office. "Let's get out of here." Now? Why not? I looked back at the office, the fluorescent lights, the hum of routine, the life I had spent years keeping carefully in place. I could go back, pretend, act like last night was a fluke, but it wasn't. "Okay," I said, surprising myself. "Let's go." We ended up in a quiet restaurant nearby. Low light, soft music, warm colors, a place untouched by deadlines and spreadsheets. He ordered wine. I sipped, slowly relaxing into the space between us. "So," I said after a moment, "what are we doing? Here?" He looked at me for a long beat. The unreadable look he often wore was still there, but now it was laced with something tender, vulnerable. "Honestly," he said, "I wanted to be somewhere we didn't have to pretend." "Pretend." He nodded. That last night didn't mean something. The words hung between us, gentle but unignorable. "It did," I admitted softly. He looked relieved, not smiling, not smug, just quietly grateful. "Then maybe," he said, "we can finally talk, really talk, about us." I confessed, slowly at first, how I'd always placed my job above everything else. How I'd convinced myself that real connection, the kind that mattered, was something for other people. People who hadn't lost time the way I had. People who hadn't taught themselves to be content with being alone. Damien listened, his hand brushing against mine again. But this time it wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. Steady. "You're not alone in that," he said softly. And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. By the time we stepped outside, the city had slipped into silence. The streets glowed under the amber wash of streetlights, the world quiet and folded around us like a secret. The night felt slower now, like it was giving us space to catch up to what we were feeling. At the corner, he paused and turned to me. "I don't want to rush this," he said, "but I also don't want to pretend it doesn't matter." My heart beat fast, loud in my ears. "It's complicated." He gave a short, wry laugh. That's an understatement. We stood there in the stillness, in the middle of a city that never really stops moving, and yet it felt like everything had paused just for us. Then, without thinking, without strategy or second-guessing, I stepped closer. Damien's breath hitched. His eyes searched mine as if waiting for me to pull away, to return to the safe, predictable version of myself. But I didn't. I let myself feel it. The kiss was gentle, unhurried. The kind of kiss that doesn't try to prove anything. It just exists. Quiet and meaningful. Like the start of something we'd both spent too long pretending we didn't want. And somewhere in that still moment, beneath the city lights and unsaid words, I knew. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning we never let ourselves imagine.